YouTube, welcome to another Season 6 Patch 5.24 guide. In this episode, we're going to be covering Jungle Nidalee. Now, Nidalee actually got a small buff in 5.24, being her Q damage is up. They raised the early base damage as well as the early max damages. We've all seen how much Nidalee's spears can chunk in the mid and late game. They were very subpar in the early game, but this buff should help a lot with that. Nidalee has an extremely safe early game as well as a strong mid game. She's great at sieging as well due to her javelin and heals. She's not considered a really high tier champion at the moment, which is probably because she does not have an actual CC. However, with her kit, she can gank very fast and very often, which can make her very potent. In this guide, we're going to cover Jungle Nidalee's pros and cons, her masteries, runes, summoners, her ability leveling order, her item build, and some general info and tips on her as well. Now we're going to jump into Nidalee's pros and cons, starting with her pros. The first is that she has safe early game with good sustain. Nidalee's very safe in the jungle because she has a heal as well as the ability to pounce over walls if she is invaded. Because of her heal, she's usually not going to be in jungle that low, and ganking her is kind of pointless considering she'll be at high health as it is, as well as being able to pounce. Pounce is also a skill that makes her extremely mobile. Pounce is a short range gap closer which is pretty spammable. By using this over and over again while you're running back to lane or wherever you're heading, it makes you faster than other champions in the game. Because of this, your ganks can happen much more frequently and are much faster as well. Nidalee also has very strong poke due to her javelin. It has a very long range, and the more flight time it gets, the more damage it also does. On top of this, like I mentioned before, she has very strong heals. Both scale very well with AP, which of course is what you build as Jungle Nidalee. These two skills in combination is what makes Nidalee a very strong sieger. With a team, she can heal people up over and over again if they get low while sieging towers, as well as chunking enemies massively if able to land spears. On top of this, Nidalee also has extremely high burst damage, at least in the mid game. With a high AP build, you're able to pounce in, use all your abilities, kill them, and then pounce back out. Nidalee also has reliable gap closers. Part of this is pounce, but the way her passive works as well, you can get 30% more movement speed when exiting brushes or as long as the enemy is marked, which is a new part of Nidalee's passive. With all of these pros come a few cons, the first one being she's very squishy and also very vulnerable to CC. Since she only has one ranged ability in her Javelin Toss, she will usually be in melee range in her Panther form to deal lots of damage, and she does not go for a tanky build, so she is able to be CC'd and killed instantly. When sieging, she's also fairly reliant on having blue buff. She can only use Javelin Toss and heals so many times, so when she does not have a blue buff, it is not that effective. Nidalee's last con is that she has inconsistent range damage. Her Javelin Toss is rather slow in the air, so enemies that are rather knowledgeable about its pathing and how fast it moves are hit very rarely. Next, we're going to look at Nidalee's Masteries, which is 6 Ferocity, 18 Cunning, and 6 Resolve. First in Ferocity, we get 2% increased ability damage, and Feast, which is killing a unit, restores 20 health on a 25-second cooldown. In Cunning, we first get Wanderer for 3% movement speed out of combat, then we get Runic Affinity, which is buffs from neutral monsters, last 15% longer. We follow this up with Merciless, which is 5% more damage to champions below 40% health. Then Dangerous Game, which is champion kills and assists, restore 5% of your missing health and mana. Precision, which is gain 5 plus 0.5 per level armor pen, and 3 plus 0.3 per level magic pen. And then finally, of course, like usual, Thunderlord's Decree, which is third attack or spell on an enemy champion, calls down a lightning strike. We finish this up by going into Resolve and getting Recovery for 2 health regen per 5 seconds, and Tough Skin, which is take 2 less damage from champions and neutral monster basic attacks. For runes, we get 9 greater marks of magic penetration, 6 greater glyphs of scaling cooldown reduction, which does 10% at level 18, 3 greater glyphs of magic resist, 9 greater seals of armor, and 3 greater quintessences of ability power. We take the 9 greater marks of magic penetration to make the spears much more effective, as well as your cat abilities. The ability power does this as well, but also makes your healing much more effective in jungle on top of it. We take the 9 greater seals of armor to ensure that you take as little damage as possible in the jungle, and the 10% cooldown reduction we get from our runes are very nice as well, considering we get to use our abilities more often. Next, we look at Nidalee's summoners, which are of course Flash and Smite. Flash is used for chasing, escaping, and repositioning. Smite is a must-have as a jungler, as it makes your jungle clears faster and is good to finish off Dragon and Baron. You also gain Chilling Smite when you acquire Skirmisher's Saber to increase kill potential. This is actually really nice for Nidalee, considering she doesn't have anything like a hard CC in her kit. Now we're going to look at each of Nidalee's abilities, starting with her passive, which is called Prowl. So the first part, moving through brush, grants Nidalee 10% bonus movement speed for 2 seconds, increased to 30% if she is moving towards a nearby visible enemy champion. Now this has been part of Nidalee's kit for a very long time. The bonus movement speed is very nice in the brush, but it's even better when moving towards an enemy champion if you're trying to assassinate them by having 30% movement speed. Now the hunt part is what's somewhat new. Hitting monsters or enemy champions with Javelin Toss or Bushwhack marks them as hunted for 4 seconds, granting true sight of them for the duration. Affected monsters are also rooted for 2 seconds. While moving toward hunted targets, Nidalee gains Prowl's bonus movement speed and ignores unit collision. Additionally, Nidalee's first use of Takedown and Pounce against hunted targets are empowered. The last part is what's very nice about this ability, considering your Pounce goes up to 750 range and the cooldown of the ability is only 1.5 seconds, so positioning is much easier. Now we look at Nidalee's Q, which is called Javelin Toss in human form and Takedown in panther form. So for the Javelin Toss portion, Nidalee hurls a javelin forward in a line, dealing magic damage to the first enemy it hits, which after traveling a minimum distance is increased by 1% per 3.875 units traveled, capping at 200% bonus damage. So the minimal magic damage this ability can do is between 60 and 130 plus 40% AP. This obviously gets a hell of a lot more as it flies through the air. As for Takedown, Nidalee's next basic attack gains range and is modified to deal magic damage, increased by 1.5% per every 1% of the target's missing health, for a maximum of 150% bonus damage. If the target is marked as hunted, Takedown deals 33% increased damage. This scales with ranks in Aspect of the Cougar. Minimum magic damage is between 4 and 90, plus 75% AD and 36% AP. And since this does percentage of missing health, it's obviously very good to use later on as it does huge burst damage. This ability does the most damage for Nidalee in both range and melee form, so this is what we max first. Next we look at Nidalee's W, which is called Bushwhack in human form and Pounce in cougar form. So for Bushwhack, Nidalee lays a trap at the target location that arms after a brief delay and lasts up to 2 minutes. The next enemy who springs the trap takes magic damage over 4 seconds and is revealed for the duration. The magic damage is between 10 and 50 per second, plus 5% AP. This ability is good because you can place it all around the entrances to your jungle to know if anybody's coming in to counter jungle you. As for her cougar form, which is called Pounce, Nidalee dashes a fixed distance in the direction of the cursor, dealing magic damage to enemies around her landing point. So for the hunt bonus, Pounce can be used to target nearby hunted targets and gains increased range against them. Killing a unit or dashing to a hunted target reduces Pounce's base cooldown by 70% if it's currently at a higher amount. This scales with your ultimate, which is called Aspect of the Cougar, and the magic damage is between 50 and 200, plus 30% AP. The hunt bonus, which makes her have a really reliable gap closer as it can be used to jump straight to a target from a very long range. The skill is also what makes Nidalee very mobile, as she can keep pouncing over and over again to quickly get to places, and can also use it over walls to go from a different angle as well as to escape if invaded. Now we look at Nidalee's E, which is called Primal Surge in human form and Swipe in cougar form. So for Primal Surge, Nidalee invokes the Spirit of the Cougar, healing the target, allied champion, or herself and granting them bonus attack speed for 7 seconds. The heal is between 45 and 205, plus 50% AP, and the attack speed is between 20 and 60%. So this is really great in jungle as it keeps you rather high in health. As well, when you're pushing towers, aka sieging, healing people that take damage is really effective as well in taking the tower. Imagine using this on an AD carry like Jinx, which is really good at shredding towers, for an extra 60% attack speed on top of whatever she gets from her Q already. So Swipe is the second part of this. Nidalee claws at an enemy in an arc in the direction of the cursor, dealing magic damage to all enemies hits. This scales with your ultimate, which is Aspect of the Cougar, and the magic damage is between 70 and 250, plus 45% AP. Now this is great just because it deals AoE damage, which makes it really good in jungle as well for clearing jungle camps. The sustain you get from human form and the AoE you get from the cougar form is really nice, which means we max this right after our Q. Now that we've covered each of her abilities, we're going to talk about her ability leveling order. So first is Aspect of the Cougar, which is her R. You take it whenever you can, meaning 6, 11, and 16. Next, you take your Javelin Toss / Takedown, which is your Q. You take it at level 3, and it is main leveling priority. So you take it at 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. Next is your Primal Surge and your Swipe, which is your E. You take it at level 2, and it is second in leveling priority. So you take it at 2, 8, 10, 12, and 13. Finally is your Bushwhack and Pounce, which is your W. You take it at level 1, and it is your last in leveling priority. So you take it at 1, 14, 15, 17, and 18. With all that covered, we're now going to look at Nidalee's item build. And you start with Hunter's Talisman and some health pots. Your first item you get is Skirmisher's Saber, enchanted with Runeglaive. You then get a Rod of Ages, so it stacks as soon as possible. You then get Ionian Boots of Lucidity for some cooldown reduction, followed by Zonia's for its awesome activate. You then get a Void Staff to penetrate people's magic resist, and finally Ryali's is really good on Nidalee as you get the slows when jumping in. Some alternatives to this would be a Frost Queen's Claim for some extra CDR as well as the gold generation, an Abyssal Scepter if you're against a lot of AP, and a Rabadon's if you're looking to just do mass chunks with your spears and heals. Now Nidalee fits into a lot of different team comps, such as a sieging or poke comp due to the long range on her spear, as well as the heals she can toss out to her team over and over. However, she doesn't fit into every comp. She's good in jungle because she can roam very quick, however she does not have a hard CC or anything, so she needs to be in a team that usually has at least some CCs around the map so her ganks can be somewhat effective. She's an extremely fun champion to play, however, due to her extremely fast roams and the massive damage she can do on her spears as well. That pretty much covers my guide for Nidalee. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next guide. Please like and subscribe if you guys did enjoy the video. I will have many other guides coming out in the near future, so please look out for those. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again.